So as I mentioned at the end of my Rasengan video, the Chidori is the result of Kakashi attempting to fuse lightning release chakra in with the Rasengan, and as a result you can probably guess for yourself that it's an A-rank short-range lightning release technique. Though the Chidori is fundamentally very similar to the Rasengan, it possesses enough key differences to give it an identity of its own. One of these differences is admittedly a pretty minor one, but unlike the Rasengan, which is more or less pretty quiet, the Chidori is incredibly loud. As a matter of fact, its name means 1,000 birds in English, which is a reference to the repetitive high-frequency chirping noise that the technique makes while it is being used. Minor differences aside, the biggest key difference that sets the Chidori apart from the Rasengan is the speed at which it is performed. Typically, all uses of the Chidori involve its user charging at their target at full speed, and considering Sasuke was able to dodge an attack moving at the speed of sound in the tuning exams, yeah, that's pretty fast. Now, while moving at Mach speed does come with its perks, like making it very difficult to dodge the Chidori and increasing the force behind it, it also comes with quite a few drawbacks, namely what Minato describes to Kakashi as a tunnel vision effect. Since performing the Chidori requires a person to move at such a high speed and only in a straight line, this cuts off their peripheral vision and makes it so that they can only see directly in front of them, or like Minato says, gives them tunnel vision. This makes it very difficult for a user of Chidori to react to surprise attacks directed at them from the sides or behind, and it also makes hitting somebody after they've dodged the initial strike from the Chidori pretty much impossible. Now, bypassing this drawback is very easy if a user of the Chidori has the Sharingan, and why should be quite obvious, thanks to all of the vision buffs that the Sharingan grants a person. The Sharingan allows them to both see and react to external threats more easily, even while moving at ludicrously high speeds like those that the Chidori demands. But using the Sharingan in conjunction with the Chidori further highlights one of its other problems, and that is its enormous chakra consumption. At least in the beginning of the series, using the Sharingan did require quite a bit of chakra, though I suppose this was mitigated later on in Shippuden. Back when the Sharingan did take up a pretty decent amount of chakra while it was active, Kakashi could only use the Chidori in conjunction with the Sharingan 4 times a day, and Sasuke could only do so 2 times a day. And while it is a lethal attack that reaps serious rewards if a person can land it, a quarter to a half of a person's chakra pool is a pretty steep price to pay. Now, both of them had this limit increased to an unspecified amount by the end of the series, but that still doesn't change the fact that the cost of using the Chidori is incredibly high. Like the Rasengan, the Chidori has many variants and derivative jutsu, though many of them can be considered completely different jutsu in their own right because of how different their applications are from the base Chidoris. Chidori Senbon, Chidori Nagashi, and Chidori Eiso are all examples of what I'm talking about here, and while some of them do share the trademark 1,000 birds-esque noise that the Chidori is known for, none of them really accomplish the same thing that the base jutsu is meant to, nor do they build on its foundation in any way. They're pretty much completely different jutsu. The variant that's the most similar to the basic Chidori is the Raikiri, or lightning cutter, and well, the reason why I say it's so similar is because it's actually just the same jutsu, except a little better. The lightning cutter is a more refined, more powerful, and easier to use version of the Chidori that just requires better chakra control, and it also has the added benefit of requiring the user to perform less hand seals than the base Chidori does. This might not sound like a big deal, but regular Chidori requires 9 hand seals, whereas lightning cutter only requires 3. I guess it's not a huge deal for somebody who can weave hand seals as quickly as Kakashi can, but it's still a pretty nice perk. Another technique further derived from the Raikiri is the Raiden, or lightning cable, lightning transmission as it's known in the English anime, which is a technique that involves Kakashi using the shadow clone jutsu to create 2 lightning cutters, one in his right hand and one in the clone's left hand, or vice versa, and then connecting these lightning cutters with a cable of lightning release chakra. Now, when you think about it, since it requires both he and his clone to move at a really high speed and in a straight line, the Raiden technique kind of does the exact same thing that the base Chidori and Raikiri do. However, the Raiden is at least implied to have increased cutting power, and it obviously has a much wider range as well. All of the other Chidori variants are just the very basic kind, like the ones that I discussed at the end of the Rasengan video. Things like the Black Chidori or Chidori Lament, which hasn't ever been officially named, but has been given all sorts of labels by fans and video games, and is simply just a Chidori that's been powered up by Sasuke's cursed seal of heaven. The Dark Chidori, or Onyx Chidori, is Sasuke's Chidori after he's poured 6 paths power into it, and since he has been seen regularly switching between this version of the Chidori and the basic version of the Chidori, I'd have to assume that this version takes up more chakra and is by extension more powerful. Another variant involves Sasuke combining the base Chidori with, well, it varies depending on the source, but it's either an Enton Kogutsuchi or Enton Yasuka Magatama. Either way, it's essentially Chidori powered up by a Matarasu or Blaze release, though I'm not sure what the specific effects of it are. The final variant used by Sasuke is the Susanoo Chidori, which is exactly what it sounds like. A Chidori formed in the hands of a Susanoo or a perfect Susanoo. Kakashi has also used his own exclusive variants of the Chidori, both by combining the Raikiri with 6 paths power, like how Sasuke combined his with the Chidori, and by combining Kamui with the Raikiri to create the Kamui Raikiri. Though the name's uncreative, it's a really cool technique, as it allows its user to warp anything that the Raikiri touches into the Kamui dimension. This technique was actually even enough to scare Kaguya quite a bit. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Anyway though, that about wraps up everything there is to say about the Chidori. So as always, thank you guys for watching the video all the way to the end. If you're new here, make sure to hit that like button and that subscribe button to get updated when I post new content. And if you really love me, maybe check the description for the links to my Twitter account and my Patreon account. And most important of all, make sure you have a fantastic rest of the day. Hope to see you in my next video, and I'll talk to you later, everybody. Swagkage out. Bye.